Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. Also check me out on Twitch as Floyd Mason.
Hello, welcome back, Spooks fans. We are back. We are back with book number 17. Why I'm Afraid of Bees. I got this little guy here on the cover. It's Gary Lutz, the main character of this book. And yeah, little spoiler: he becomes a bee. Not like this though. It clearly states that he's got all the eyes of a bee. He doesn't have his head or anything. But yeah, fun little drawing. Actually, I should get out my scorecard. So I remember what I gave this one. I actually read this one a while ago. Been pretty bad about making videos lately, so I'm a little behind. But yeah, we'll talk about this one today and hopefully start to get a bit of a rhythm again. I also have the reprint cover of this one. So again, these ones are always pretty similar. Honestly, I like these ones about the same. I'd say the orange color is slightly better. Again, I always like kind of the cutoff of the top of these ones versus kind of the all-around of these ones. So this one is definitely slightly better, but pretty good. We'll get into the cover at the end, talk a little bit more about it, but I do find it a little odd that it's like zoomed in. Most of them are almost the exact same, and this is the first one to me that sticks out as being a zoomed in version. It's got a bigger head, but is what it is. It's pretty close, pretty similar. Yeah. So why I'm Afraid of Bees. So this story is about a boy, Gary Lutz, who is known as Lutz the Klutz, and he's just kind of an unpopular boy. And man, will R.L. Stine make it clear how much people do not like this kid. So it starts off explaining that one of Gary's biggest fears is bees. He's hanging out in his backyard. He likes to sit under this tree. But his neighbor has an apiary, which is basically, or I don't know if it's a full apiary, but he has beehives. He keeps bees to make honey. And so these bees live here, which Gary is very afraid of. So it starts off with his neighbor, Mr. Andretti, and he's covered with bees, and he's just like, help, oh, help me. And, big chapter 1 plot twist at the end. And, Gary's scared, runs inside. The neighbor is yelling, like, run for your life, Gary. The bees are out of control. I runs inside, and he hears his neighbor laughing, and he's just kidding him. He's basically got control of the bees because he looks after them, and they're swarming on him and not stinging and all that. So again, it starts off the book with just like even the neighbors who know this child has a fear of bees just picking on him. So that's going to continue for Gary. Runs inside as a prank. So next he goes to school because some kids are getting a baseball game. No one wants him on the team. They stick him in, like, the last team is forced to take him. They stick him in very far outfield where no one hits it. He gets up to bat, and it's important at bat. I think it's like, again, one of those ones like, oh, it's the last one of the game. They give him 4 strikes, and he strikes out. And so all the kids make fun of him. It's one of those things, like, again, Stein is really trying to make it clear that, like, this kid doesn't have a great life. Like, people don't like him. It's one of those hard things in sports, right? Because, like, yeah, there's people who are better at sports, but, like, in baseball, like, so many kids strike out all the time. Whatever. But they all pick on him. As he's going home, he runs into 3 bullies. Just seeing if I have their name written down. I don't. I can't remember what their names are. But basically, they just beat him up. Beat him up pretty good. And this is a pretty typical thing that happens to him. They do it quite a bit. And again, just piling on that, like, this kid's life is rough. People don't like him. People are very mean to him. So he goes home, hides it from his mom, goes in, gets cleaned up, kind of washes the dirt off. Goes downstairs. His mom's like, oh, like, I'll make you a snack. So she, while she's doing the snack, she gives him a jar to open, and he can't. And his little sister walks in. I can't remember. Like, he's like young teens. I think his sister's like 7 and 9. So younger sister comes in. She easily pops it off, and both of them laugh at him. So again, like, even his mom's laughing at him. The kid just gets picked on for everything he can't do. So he's kind of like, this is just his day. Again, neighbor picking on him, then all the kids pick on him, then bullies beat him up, then family's laughing at him. So he goes for a bike ride, and one thing he's like, oh, I have a pretty cool bike. His dad got him a cool bike. and he sees a girl in his class that he likes, and he's kind of trying to get her attention, and he thinks that she's looking at her, and then she yells to look out for a car, and he swerves and hits a pole. So because he was looking at her, he swerves. He's pretty banged up. His bike's totaled, and the girls just laugh and walk away. So they're not even like, "Oh my god, like, are you okay?" They just leave. So he takes it home. He's all beat up again for the second time in a row, and this time he's just like, whatever. Like, why even hide it, from anyone? He starts playing a video game, which again, he can't beat. So it's just, again, like, Stein just beating it into your head that this kid's not good at anything. Nobody likes him. He's not good at anything. But he goes online to a forum to see how to beat it, which I think is interesting because, again, this would have been early days of internet, I'm sure. So it's kind of cool that he's working in here and this kid has it and he's looking up game strats because, again, that's something I do to this day. Looking up, sometimes you find like 12-year-old strats to help you beat a game. But he's not really getting help there. And then he sees something. So he sees something that's quoted as a vacation from yourself. So it's a place called, I think, person-to-person vacations, something like that, person-to-person something, and basically it's kind of talking about like how you can switch your life. So again, he doesn't like his life, so this is kind of intriguing to him, and he's thinking about it. So after that, his parents kind of lecture him about the bike. His mom doesn't believe him right away, and it's like, oh, it's the bullies, and he takes his dad out and shows him the bike, and his dad is super upset, because again, he spent some money. It's a good bike, and he just gets lectured. And then he goes to play the game again. Looks up. You try to use the tip that the guy does and dies like 20 times in a row. Can't beat it. And then he tries to go to bed, and Chrissy has put a rubber mouse from their cat Klaus, like one of his toys, into the bed and scares him. So again, just all this stuff in one day. This kid just going through it. So all of this is really just to build up that he decides to go to person. So really, Stein is just building up all this stuff of like, yeah, this kid has a rough life, so he wants to change people. So he goes there, and like, I don't think it was clear at the time, like when he reads the thing. I don't think it explains what it is. So when he goes there, they explain that you can switch bodies with people. Miss Carmen, who's kind of the person that works there, explains all this to him and how they can switch bodies and like how some people want to do it, and that he can leave his information, his picture, and they will let him know if someone wants to trade with him. So he's not fully like, I want to do it yet, but he's pretty intrigued. So he comes home, boys beat him up again, and so he decides, yes, I'm tired of this. That's the thing of like, you're thinking about it, and then on your way home, you get beat up again for however many time, and you're just like, I'm done with this. So someone wants to change with him. A guy named, what is his name? Dirk something. Did I write down anywhere? I think it's like Dirk Davies, something like that. The guy's name is Dirk, and he wants to switch with him. And the reason he wants to is because Gary looks smart, and Dirk is failing math. So he wants someone to go into his body for a week and pass his math tests, which I don't know why person is supporting this, like, kind of shady stuff. But whatever, that's the thing. Gary's like, I'm all right at math. Like, I can do his math tests, and I'll get to be somebody else. Like, Dirk seems cool. Like, he skateboards and whatnot, and seemingly has a lot of friends. Looks cool. So he's pretty excited about it. So Miss Carmen comes over to his house to do the change, and I'll get more into it later, but a lot of the stuff about the switching bodies doesn't sit right well with me. But we'll get into it more at the end of the story. But anyways, Miss Carmen comes over. She goes to do the switch. A bee gets in the room, and so they're swatting it around, and the switch happens, and Gary wakes up and realizes that he's in the bee's body. So, classic kind of, this is kind of a spin on the fly. Famous book movie starring, original is Jeff Goldblum. I think the original's, no, the remake's Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum, which is a great movie. And in this one, so he gets switched into the bee, and he starts learning how to fly around. So he tries to initially chase after Miss Carmen outside to tell her what's going on, but obviously he's a bee, and she can't understand him, and so she swats him, falls under the car, almost runs him over, does this big kind of prank of like, she stops to put on her seatbelt, and he's like, oh, seatbelts do save lives. And it's like, come on, Stein. Like, little cheesy joke in there. It's not bad, but yeah. So he realizes that he can't do it. So then he's kind of trying to fly back in the house, and he sees Dirk is in his body and talking to his mom. So that switch worked, and he gets upset. Then again, he flies into the garage, and Dad's talking to him. So they can't tell the difference. So Dirk has basically at this point taken over his life. At that point, Mr. Andretti catches him in a net, because he goes around and catches up his loose bees. If they're not returning home, they're just kind of flying around aimlessly, and throws them into the hive. So he's pretty scared in here. Obviously, like, he hasn't eaten for a bit, so he keeps talking about, like, he's thinking about this, like, big book of bees and things that they do, like, what do they eat, using your stinger will kill you, the lifespan of bees, things like that. Like, he's always trying to, like, think of this information to help him. So he ends up eating some honey and falling asleep. Again, he doesn't know what to do in there. He can't understand the bees, which is, I guess it makes sense. We'll see later that it kind of makes sense, but yeah, like, so he only understands human in theory. Well, it makes sense, it doesn't make sense. We'll get into it later, but it's kind of iffy on that. So he falls asleep there, he wakes up, and honestly, the next part drags a bit. It's just about him being in there. He sees some bees that remind him of the bullies. He can't get out, and he doesn't know what to do. He's flying around, he can't get out, and then he follows some bees and gets out. So it's just this whole thing of, like, you know, bees go in and out of a hive all the time. I get you'd be kind of freaked out, but I think you'd find your way out pretty quick when bees go out. He kind of had to fly away from Mr. Andretti, kind of tries to get him again, but he kind of buzzes around him and gets by him and gets out. So now he's trying to decide what to do, because he has been thinking about, like, maybe he has to go talk to Miss Carmen or, you know, ask her about it. But for now, that's what he was originally doing when he got caught. But for now, he decides to go back into his house again, and he tries to speak to Chrissy, and Chrissy tries to swat him. So this is also, it gets a little repetitive of, he keeps trying to talk to people who can't understand him, and they try to kill him. This happens a couple times, and it's just kind of like, it keeps leaving cliffhangers of it. And he's always okay. I think he gets hit, like, he definitely gets hit by Miss Carmen. He gets hit by Chrissy. I think he gets hit later too, and it's just like, yeah, he might be dead as a bee, or at least, like, stinging, but he just keeps going. So realizes that's not going to work. He goes to see Dirk in his body, and Dirk's still sleeping, but Gary knows he left his computer on, and so he flies over and types out kind of a message. Says something like, I am not B, I am Gary, please help. Something like that. You know, the Dirk would hopefully understand, because he would know his name, and maybe realize that something's gone wrong. But Dirk just gets up, doesn't even read the computer, and turns it off. He's like, oh, I can't believe I left this on overnight. So, just another idea that doesn't work. So, you know, Gary kind of falls around, and Dirk is cool now. Dirk has made Gary cool. Something as well that later that Gary kind of doesn't understand, and he's just like, oh, you're me. You know, you've switched to my body, so you're me. It's like, no, like, he's still himself. He's just in your body. But he's cool. Like, Dirk skateboards. He's teaching people how to skateboard, so everyone thinks he's cool. So Gary is a bit jealous, but he's like, okay, like, I gotta get my body back. And this is when, again, he's like, I need to go back and see Miss Carmen. Oh, sorry. There's one thing right here as well. One of the lamest, like, again, I call it out, like, Stein loves doing his cliffhangers that are fabrications. He's like, oh, this is about to happen, and then it doesn't happen at all. You know, like, there's one earlier, like, that I missed, where the cat also almost eats him. And, like, you know, when Chrissy swats him, it's like, oh, it's over for me, or, oh, I'm going to be crushed by the car, or there's the cat, Klaus, catches him, but then he squeezes out. But this is one of the worst ones I've seen, which I wanted to call out directly. And he sees a dragonfly, and it says the dragonfly bites him in half. And then the next chapter is just like, oh, then I looked up and the dragonfly was flying away, and my imagination just got away from me, and I imagined that. And it's like, come on, that's a bit much. Like, you're writing something that, like, it's the same as the it was a dream thing, but it clearly wasn't a dream because it's in the middle of a different part. Like all the stuff was actually happening for a while. So it's just kind of that cheap chapter end. But I mean that's I think I get why he does it, but that's one of Stein's biggest flaws is he can't help himself from having like a cliffhanger every chapter end, and it makes you want to keep reading. As a kid, made me want to keep reading, so I get it. But as an adult, you're kind of like, okay, just doesn't need to be every chapter there, or have them be a little more, have it have a little more weight in the next paragraph. Almost all of them are, oh, I'm about to die, and the next sentence is like, whoosh, like not even close, completely safe, just did something. So anyways, he goes to fly and go back to person to person. So he flies all the way there. He kind of sneaks in through a mail slot. He first flies into a window because he can't. Doesn't remember. Typical, insect thing. It's just flying into a window because there's glass separating the room he's in and her office. And he gets to the office, and actually a pretty brilliant idea is he gets on her microphone and speaks into it, and then she can hear him. So basically she tells him like, hey, like you messed up, like I'm in a bee's body. And she's like, oh, that makes so much sense. That's why Dirk's been acting so weird. And he's like, yep, like you gotta switch me back. And she's like, I can't. Dirk doesn't want to give up your body. Again, big issues with this scene. We'll get back to it, but yeah, basically she's like, I can't do anything. She actually tells him like, oh, maybe you can go back and live in the hive for a bit and Dirk will come around. Super unhelpful. And then she's kind of upset and she leaves and locks him in. Another big like plot twist here of like, oh, it's the long weekend, how will I get out? And then he just flies into a bathroom and the window's open and he gets out. So before he leaves, he looks up Dirk's address and he's like, oh, maybe Dirk's body can help me. And he gets there and obviously it's the bee. So the reason Dirk's body is acting weird is it has a bee's mind and he's just walking around the garden trying to sniff flowers. So Gary's like, oh, he's not going to help me at all. So I gotta go back. I gotta convince Dirk to give me back my body. So flies back home. As he's going, he runs into Dirk in his body, and he sees the bullies, and he's like, "Oh, the bullies are gonna mess with him," and they're running away from Dirk. So Dirk's done something. They're now scared of him. He calls them losers, tells them to get a life. Gary also like flies in as a bee and kind of scares them as well, and feels good that he kind of got them back. But it's the thing of like, again, Gary is just a small kid. The bullies wouldn't be afraid. Like, there's nothing he could do that the bullies would be afraid of, right? Like, maybe if he was a one-on-one bully, but 3 bullies, like, if he swung on one, like, the other 2 are just going to grab him and they're going to pummel him harder. So, again, there's a lot of unbelievable parts in this book. But, yeah, so he feels good. He flies back home, and he lands in Dirk's ear and starts talking to him and trying to get his attention, and Dirk can hear him. And so apparently Dirk kind of says like, oh yeah, like since this happened, like that makes sense. Like I've actually been able to hear some bugs' thoughts, which is really weird. And like it's a good enough way for him to write it that explains why Dirk can hear him, and they kind of can have the ending that they do without having to use like the microphone trick. But it also just doesn't make sense in the thing that like Gary couldn't understand the bees at all. Like it's what I was saying kind of before of like Gary and the Hive doesn't make much sense is, he can't speak to bees. Dirk for some reason can, but the bee in Dirk's body doesn't seem to understand him at all either. So only Dirk seemed to get this ability, even though he just switched bodies. He technically really had nothing to do with the bee. So kind of a weak point, but I get why he did it, just to make the ending easier and you write it out. So that's fine. But yeah, Dirk's like, he doesn't want to change back. He likes the new body, which again doesn't make sense to me. Because Dirk was this cool before. So maybe he didn't have a good, like, they never bring it up. Like, maybe it's the thing of, like, he didn't have a good home life. But, like, in theory, Gary's a nerdier looking guy, a smaller guy. Like, yeah, he's made him cool. But, like, because he does say, like, Miss Carmen does say that he likes his family and his friends. And, like, even, like, he likes Chrissy, the little sister. So maybe it just was not a good home life, but it doesn't really make sense why Dirk would want to stay. Because the only thing that changed was his body. Like he still got his mind, he still got his abilities. So, whatever. So he doesn't want to stay. He kind of threatens to swat him away. And then the other bees come and grab Gary, and it seems like they're pulling him back to the hive. So he then comes up with the idea that he flies away, he flies into the hive, and he gets all the bees to follow him because they're still chasing him. And he swims back in, and they fly all around Dirk. And Dirk's getting very scared and whatnot. And Gary gets a little overexcited and stings him. And this is when he realizes that, oh, he's going to die. And I can't remember if it's honeybees that can only sting once. It seems to imply in this one that he's dying. So he kind of realizes that he's done for. He flies out under the tree he likes, and he blacks out. And he wakes up in his own body. So he's back. He's totally normal now. He goes in, sees his family, like hugs them all, like super excited, super happy to see them all. And he's no longer scared of bees. So his dad's like, don't go in your room. Like you left your window open and a bunch of bees got in. And he goes in and just clears them out. So he's not scared anymore, and he's much cooler now. So now he, for some reason, is a good skateboarder and still gives lessons. People like him. The bullies don't pick on him really anymore. He actually runs into Dirk, and Dirk apologizes and says, like, yeah, I also had a bad one. The bee failed all my math tests, so I have to do summer school. But they become friends. And then it ends with just the little twist of, like, he still likes pollen, though, and he's going to smell the flowers and try to lick out the pollen. So that's kind of how it ends. So, overall, I like the idea of this story. Again, a retelling of The Fly. Pretty interesting idea with the bee. The problem is that so many parts of this story don't make sense. So, I kind of hinted at throughout. First of all, like, I don't see why a company would switch bodies for someone who wants to cheat on a math test. That doesn't make any sense. But the part where she goes to the house and she switches him, so Dirk's not even there. It's not like they get them two in the room and they switch him. Dirk doesn't apparently have to be anywhere near. I don't know if somebody else is at his house making him press the buttons or what's going on. Because then later when he doesn't switch back, it's like, well, he wasn't even there in the first place, so I don't see why they can't just switch him back as is. But also, how then did the bee get switched, right? Like, if the bee is just in the vicinity, like, then wouldn't Miss Carmen be susceptible to it? Like, how did it get included? It didn't obviously agree to do the switch. So that kind of just breaks a lot of the plot points of the story. And again, it's a kid's book. It's not supposed to be factually correct, but it's one of those ones that bothers me. It's just the logic doesn't flow enough for me. Again, I can give in to a bit of the... I don't like ones where it's just like all of a sudden there's a sci-fi fix that fixes things. An unexplained thing. Like my go back to is always Mummy's Tomb, where all of a sudden the mummies are just actually alive. This one, at least it's like kind of based in reality, and they have the switcher machine, and like, yes, science doesn't make sense, but it exists in this world, so that's fine. But the fact that they could switch Dirk without him being there, and the bee got pulled in, but then they can't do it back, and the fact that Dirk gets like the abilities from it, and then all of a sudden at the end, like, they're switched back, and it's very quick. Like there's no way that Dirk went downtown and did it, because the bees are still in his room, right? Like, they would have all, like, it sounded like they were already leaving as it was. So this had to have happened pretty quickly, which again, like, it seems like Gary might have just killed that bee, because that bee was dying. If it got switched back, it's dead, which is lucky Dirk didn't go in there, I guess. It also just doesn't make sense that how quickly Dirk got cool in a new body. Even skateboarding, like, people would take a little bit to warm up to this guy for how bad they treat him. Like, maybe he went and just, like, rocked a home run or something. But it also doesn't make sense to me why Dirk would want to keep his body. Again, unless he had, like, a super bad home life. It just seems a little far-fetched. And the fact that all of a sudden, just because he had the experience as a bee, because, like, the biggest problem with Gary was that he was super clumsy. And he couldn't do anything right. And even as a bee, it said he was clumsy. He kept flying into things. So it just doesn't make sense all of a sudden he's now a great skateboarder out of nowhere, and, like, people still think he's cool. Like, being a bee wouldn't all of a sudden help you hit a baseball. So that part's a little far-fetched to me. So it's just things like that just kind of make you go, like, it's a bit of a reach for the story. Again, the whole first part is just about showing how uncool he is, which goes on for a while. And then the entire time as a bee, I kind of wish he explored being a bee a bit more. But the hive part just, again, was just about him wandering. It wasn't super interesting. And it just kept doing the thing where he tries to talk to somebody and they try to swat him. And he just keeps trying to do it. The parts I like the idea of it is interesting. I do like him trying to think of the bee stuff and kind of think about what he can do as a bee. you know, like the initial idea of him being in the hive is great. I just feel like it goes on a little bit long. Yeah, so there's good parts of the story, but I'm going to give it a C. Um, it's just kind of okay. Uh, just not quite good enough. As for the cover, um, I mean, it's pretty good. I do like the coloring on it. Like the idea is good. I gave it a B. It just doesn't jump out as me, and I feel like that's kind of a thing too of looking at it right after we read One Day in Horrorland. But I don't know. Like it's the thing of it's good. Like this is borderline A. Like I like it. The drawing is fantastic. I don't know what else they could have done. Like this is a great representation of what the book is, but it's just kind of it's a B with a human head. So I don't know. It's borderline A. When I get around to ranking them, this might get moved up to an A. Like it's drawn well. I think some of them, you know, are just they have more going on because there's more for the story to pull from, which helps them. But this one is just it's just a bit simple for me. But yeah, that is Why I'm Afraid of Bees. Again, not a bad story in any way, but I just don't think there was enough here for a story really. Because like I'm kind of racking my brain of what you could do. Like you know, maybe like the only things you can really do is what Stein did was him kind of have complications of a bee. I think maybe it could have been a little bit more, I guess, of him like learning how to fly or you know a little more back and forth with Dirk. You know, when you realize that Dirk can talk to him, like maybe you kind of break that up so he talks to Dirk earlier instead of just the computer thing, and then he's thinking of a way to do it, and he comes up with the plan, or he tries a plan or two and it doesn't work. But it just felt, you know, and some of science books do a bit, but this one felt repetitive. So that's going to do it for this one. I will hopefully get to the next one sooner than I did on this one. I have not read it yet, but again, you can read these books in a day. That's what I kind of like about them. That's kind of why I wanted to read them. I actually can't remember which book is next. So I think it might be Monster Blood 2, which I'm interested to read because, again, Monster Blood 1 was one of the lower ones. Looking at this, it was also a C and B. So Bees is actually only our third C to date. With Be Careful What You Wish For, this one, and Bees. And of the C's, like this is definitely the best of the three, I think. And cover, yeah, one of the only few B's. I really only gave it to this one. Let's Get Invisible and again Monster Blood. And again, this is probably the best of those three. So I will see you all in the next.
Thanks for watching. Please click to check out my other videos, like and subscribe, and come by Twitch under Floyd Mason to join my live streams.